So here's the situation. I'm at Outback Steakhouse. I've ordered 10 steaks. I've got it coming out curb service. I'm just picking it up and going. And the question is, how much do I tip for curb pickup? It's not something I do very often, and this is going to be a sizable bill. We're talking well over $200. So am I going to give them a $40+ tip for simply bringing my food out to my car? Guys, in this video, I'm going to talk about 5 tricky tipping situations. All right, like I said, in this video, I'm gonna go over 5 tricky tipping situations. This video came out of an actual incident this summer where I found myself in that position at Outback Steakhouse. And I'm trying to say, I don't really know what to do. So I spoke with the server and we actually had a nice conversation. And that really got me thinking, I bet I'm not the only person falling into this situation. Now, at the end of this video, I'm gonna give you my 3 rules that I think should apply anytime you're out there tipping. And I know many of you guys are outside the US, and so I would love to hear from you down in the comments what the tipping rules are in your country, and if you feel I missed something or you would add something, just let me know down in the comments, guys. Situation number 1, how much to tip at takeout? I think at a minimum you should tip 10%. Also, look at the individual and look at how much effort and what they're putting into, and possibly even tip more. So I'm going to use the Outback Steakhouse example. That's an example of where this guy went above and beyond. He ran the food out to me. He showed me everything on my receipt. He actually then went through everything because we had 10 orders. He asked me if I wanted to check the steaks. He made sure we had extra bread. He made sure we had all the utensils. Basically, he had me set to go. He spent a good probably 3 to 4 minutes, and then I took 2 minutes of his time, and I found out that yes, he actually did get a percentage of the tips, and that was an important source. And actually, not many people, in fact, I think I've read a study, 43% of people don't tip at takeout. So he said, yeah, a lot of times they just get stiffed. So I left a 20% tip. One, because I got to know the individual who gave me some good information, but also because I realized he gave me above average service, and so I was happy to tip him if I had been like in the restaurant. Now, there are lower examples of where, I go to a Mexican restaurant, I pay $7 for this meal, they bring it out to me, it's, packaged up, ready to go, and I simply tip $1. At that point, yes, it's still more than 10%, but I do believe there should be a minimum, and I do believe, don't stiff the person at takeout. Scenario number 2, how to tip when your bill is tiny or whenever they decided to comp you certain things. Maybe they throw on extra drinks, they throw in an extra meal, and the bill is smaller than it should be. In that case, I like to over-tip the individual, and here's how it works. So if I go into a cafe and it's $1, oftentimes I've got one next to my house I like to go to, maybe sit for an hour, sometimes 2 hours on my computer. If I'm there for an hour, I'm gonna tip her $5. And I'm gonna tip her oftentimes right at the very beginning. I find she gives me better service, that she'll come and leave the pot of coffee. And it's just simply, I know that I'm taking up her time, and I'm very aware of this. And I do think it's something that you shouldn't just go with the 10% or 20% rule when it's well under $10. You wanna raise it up a bit, especially if this person, maybe they said, oh, well, we threw the drinks on there, or she spills something and she says, it's on me. Think about, at the end of the day, how much time you took of this individual, and try to be generous in your tips, especially when you know this person depends on tips for their livelihood. Scenario number 3, tip jars. And I'm talking specifically at coffee shops. I know a lot of times people go in there and they're like, okay, why do you have a tip jar here? Because I'm just grabbing a coffee and I'm leaving. In that case, I would say ignore it. But if you go to this coffee shop again and again and you want to have a relationship with the people working there, I do advise that you tip. And at that point, it becomes the relationship. It becomes you supporting them, you being the person that actually puts something in there. But I know this is a bit controversial, and I want to hear from you guys down in the comments below. Scenario number 4, how to tip when you get bad service. So in this case, gentlemen, I'm going to say you should still tip 10%. I know many of you guys are saying, Antonio, I'm going to tip 0 or I'm going to leave a penny. Don't do that, because one, is that really going to force that person to have better service? It could have been that waiter or waitress is just having a bad day. There could be something going on back in the kitchen. Hopefully they've explained to you what happened. Also, there are busboys, there are food runners that depend on these tips, and it's not their fault necessarily that this happened. Instead, tip 10% and ask to speak to the owner. Ask to speak to the manager and ask them, what happened? Why was it this bad? And let's look on the flip side. If you get great service, don't just tip 20%. ask to speak to the owner or the manager and say, you know what? Your waiter is friggin' awesome. They made my day. This was the best service I've received all week. Scenario number 5. You don't have enough money for a tip. So let's say you got 20 bucks in your pocket and you're at that restaurant and you really want that steak. It's $19.99. You know there's going to be no tax on this. So you're going to be able to get out with 1 penny. Guys, don't do it. You need to budget for the tip, especially if you're in the United States. It is just something that these people depend on it for their livelihood. Basically, you do not have enough money for that steak. I know you think you do, but you don't. You need to go down. You need to maybe look at that $14 hamburger and leave a nice tip for those people. They depend on this. Many people in my family have worked in this industry, and it's a hard industry, and I'm a big believer that you need to tip correctly. So now we're in the second part of the video. I want to talk about my 3 general tipping rules. Number 1, show respect to your server. They have a name. Use their name. Say please. Say thank you. Give them your full attention. Don't be like, their time is valuable. So don't be like lost in your phone. Actually know what you want to order and treat them with respect. General tipping rule number 2 is to carry cash with you when you travel, preferably small bills, so it makes tipping easier. So if you're going to be running into a bellhop, you're going to be running into a doorman, you're going to be taking a taxi to and from, that you're able to tip accordingly, gentlemen, and you don't have to worry about, it's nice when they take a credit card and you can write it in, but you're not always going to be in those situations. Also, be thinking about your maid. Be thinking about when you go get a haircut. All of these people in the service industry, they depend on tips to be able to make a living. General tipping rule number 3, gentlemen, if you expect more, if you make a big mess, and I know having 4 kids, let's just say whenever we go to a restaurant, I oftentimes tip very generously before the meal starts because my kids, as well behaved as they are, something always gets spilled. Something always falls on the floor. But when it comes down to it, I know that this is going to happen and I take care of the server. So if you have special needs, if you're making in a really difficult request, if you find that this person's going above and beyond, consider giving them a nicer tip. All right, gentlemen, that's it. So hopefully you enjoyed this. I know that this is a little bit different. And let me know in the comments if you think I should cover more things on etiquette and manners. I think it's very important when it comes to style, not just how you dress, but how you behave. And if you enjoy topics like this, go check out our free Facebook group. In this group, I've got a great group of guys, well over 10,000 men, who are helping each other, are motivating each other to dress better, to have better manners, to improve themselves and be the best that they can be. Gentlemen, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.